In many cases where a child goes missing, the result is never what we hope it to be. We wish and pray for their safe return and always assume they were taken from a third party outside of the family. But unfortunately, there are cases where the child was doomed from the start because of the instability of their parents. So get comfy, grab yourself a mocha, as we unpack the unfortunate and tragic case of Sky Metalwala. Julia Birakova is a Ukrainian that was born in Soviet Russia. She has made claims that she was subjected to shock therapy in mental hospitals during her childhood as punishment, along with regular beatings from her parents. At the age of 13, she emigrated to Washington, USA with her family. In 1997, when she was 15 and a student at Bellevue High School, she met 21-year-old Solomon Metalwala at the store he worked at. He invited her to a party and the two began dating not long after. Julia started to work at the restaurant that Solomon's family owned, and 2 years later, once she had finished high school and had become a full citizen of the United States, the pair bought a condo together. During their relationship, there were signs of trouble. At one point, Kirkland police were called out to a gas station where the couple were loudly arguing about their plans for the night. The male gave his name to police as Solomon Metalwala, Solomon's brother. Around this time, Julia told a psychologist that her boyfriend had become very controlling, and she had become emotionally dependent on him. In 2003, the couple got married in a brief ceremony in Solomon's mother's kitchen. According to Julia, this was because Solomon was at risk of being deported back to his home country of Pakistan. However, she never disclosed the reason behind it. In 2005, Solomon converted to Christianity and the couple began attending a church in Kirkland. This caused more problems and strain within the relationship, as Solomon's family were Muslim and blamed Julia for turning him away from their faith. Only 2 years into their marriage, they began facing financial problems as well, due to a deli opening next door to the family restaurant. Nevertheless, in 2007, they welcomed their baby daughter, Mally, into the world. Their financial problems grew during the 2008 recession, but the couple decided to buy another home that year for $800,000, even though they still had mortgage payments due on the condo they had purchased previously. In 2009, whilst pregnant with their second child, Julia was prescribed antidepressants by her psychiatrist, even though she claimed that she did not need them. At this point, lenders were starting to foreclose their properties due to missed payments and arrears on their bills. This forced them to move back into the condo, where Solomon claims that Julia began showing signs of OCD, causing him to begin eating outside and sleeping on the floor to comply with her obsession with keeping the condo clean. After the birth of Sky Metalwala, a baby boy, the couple faced more legal trouble. When he was only 2 months old, his parents left him alone in their car in a Target car park for almost an hour on a day when the outdoor temperature was -3 degrees Celsius. Both parents were arrested after police had paged them to their car and charged them with reckless endangerment. The Metalwalas claimed they had been inside for only 20 minutes and did not want to wake the child, but the CCTV disproved them. After they agreed to take a parenting class, charges were dropped several years later. On Julia's 29th birthday in early 2010, she was briefly committed to a mental hospital for the first of 3 times, after telling Solomon she had dreamed of killing the children. It was then that she was diagnosed with severe obsessive-compulsive disorder. However, psychiatrists did not believe that rendered her unfit to parent a child, and she would later deny that she had been diagnosed. Shortly after she got out, Solomon filed for divorce. After the couple separated, Julia texted her husband claiming to be suicidal, which she later claimed she had done just to get his attention. When she was committed to a mental hospital for the 3rd time, she was found to be a danger to herself and others. After that release, Solomon and his brother took Julia to the University of Washington Medical Center, where she checked in voluntarily. While she was there, their lender foreclosed on the condo. Solomon then moved with the children to his parents' home in Kirkland. The couple had a really messy divorce. Julia alleged in her filings that Solomon had been abusive and that she feared for her life. Solomon claimed that the allegations were fabricated and said her mental problems made her unstable, incapable of keeping food in the house, or letting her children sleep in beds due to her OCD. Child Protective Services investigated a claim that Solomon had injured his daughter but ruled it unfounded. Nevertheless, Solomon was prohibited from seeing his children for a year while the case was investigated. At different times in the case, both spouses sought protection orders against each other. In September 2010, the court awarded Julia full custody of both children. She refused to let them see Solomon, who did not have any visitation rights. Julia offered to forego alimony and child support if he let her move to Arizona with the children, but he refused. In November 2011, the court hearing the case ordered the couple into a week of mediation to resolve their issues. The session was reportedly a success, with the two eventually agreeing that Julia would have custody of both children while Solomon had full visitation. However, on November 3rd, shortly after the agreement had been signed, Julia called her lawyer saying she had felt pressured into the session and decided to void it. On the morning of November 6, 2011, according to Julia, Sky woke up sick. She said she put him and his sister in the car, a silver 1998 two-door Acura Integra, and headed for the Overlake Medical Center in Bellevue. Julia claims that on the way there, her car ran out of gas. She then says that she parked the car on the side of the road. She said she left Sky strapped into his car seat inside while she took Mally to find assistance, reaching a Chevron station a mile north of where she had parked an hour later. Instead of buying fuel or asking someone to bring it to her car, she called a friend who came and picked her up and gave her a ride back to her car. Julia said that when she returned, she discovered that Sky was gone. She called the police and reported him missing. They, in turn, contacted Solomon before noon that day. Police immediately searched a 20-block radius of the car but came up empty. Early into the investigation, there was a major doubt with Julia's account on what had happened to her 2-year-old son. Her car was tested, and it was found that she had more than enough fuel to get to the medical center she claimed they were driving to. There were no complications in the car that would have caused it to break down either. In the hour that she had supposedly walked the neighborhood, she made no effort in seeking help from any residents or passerbys. She had also left her phone, wallet, and bag at home, even though she claimed to have left the house with a sick child. When she was questioned about the discrepancies in her story, she invoked her right to remain silent and refused to take a lie detector test. She did give permission for her phone, computer, and car to be searched. The car was unlocked and they found no signs of forced entry. There was no evidence to suggest that Sky had been in or around the car either. They questioned Solomon in the disappearance of his son, and he agreed to take a lie detector test. The results came back inconclusive. The next day, he agreed to a retest, but the results of this were not shared to the public. When searching Solomon's home, they found nothing. When police discovered the incident where Sky's parents had left him unattended in the car, they questioned both Solomon and Julia, but they found that the children had been left alone on numerous occasions by both parents. Detectives would not confirm whether Julia had done this during the lengthy mediation hearing the week before Sky went missing. Due to the lack of evidence, there were questions about whether Sky had been in the car that morning at all. Witnesses who saw the parked car on the side of the road described nothing unusual about the scene, and that there was no child in the back of the car. Neighbours of Julia in the apartment block that she lived in stated that the family rarely left their home and that there had been no sighting of Sky for at least 2 weeks. Solomon wasn't aware of anyone who had seen his son other than Julia since a doctor's appointment in April earlier during the year. However, Sky's sister Mally told police that Sky was in the car that morning. Police grew more concerned for Sky's well-being when they learned that the story Julia had come up with was eerily similar to an episode of Law and Order. In the episode Missing Pieces, a couple fabricate an abduction story of their child after it's believed they accidentally killed their baby son. It was first aired 2 weeks before Sky's disappearance and was rerun in the area that Julia lived in the night before he went missing. Solomon has publicly claimed that Law & Order is Julia's favourite TV show. Investigators publicly stated that they did not believe Julia's abduction story, and that they were sure no criminal activity had taken place that day, but they never declared her as a suspect in Sky's disappearance. They also never charged Julia with child endangerment, despite the admissions of leaving their children unattended numerous times, and her account of leaving Sky in the car when he went missing. Police stated this was a strategic decision. If they arrested and charged Julia for leaving Sky in the vehicle alone that morning, and then evidence has later uncovered that she in fact killed him or had him kidnapped, then securing a conviction for the more serious charges would be impossible, especially if evidence was found that Sky was never in the car to begin with. Solomon's lawyer stated another reason for not doing so. If they did charge her with child endangerment, it means that Julia and her lawyer could review the evidence they have against her, which would prove to be a problem if any later charges were brought against her, as they would have time to come up with plausible explanations. 2 weeks after Julia reported Sky Metalwala missing, ABC News obtained an email address from her family to try and contact her for a comment on her son's disappearance. They have not been able to confirm whether the response they got was actually from Julia, but the email called Solomon a sadistic Muslim Pakistani who was never telling the truth about what had happened. The email also goes on to state that her lawyer had instructed her not to talk about the case with anyone, and she ignored any questions referring to whether she had actually run out of fuel that morning. So, what could have happened to Sky Metalwala? Police believe that he did not just simply wander off on his own. If Sky is alive, it is assumed that Julia let somebody else take her son either the day she reported him missing or even before, with the entire story about Sky being in the car a complete lie to throw off the police's scent. Solomon's lawyer stated she concocted that hospital story, and when she realised nobody believed her, she immediately hired an attorney. Is this an indication of guilt, or did she do this as she was a foreign citizen going through the American legal process and was unsure what her next step was? Solomon believes his son is alive, but thinks that he is not in the United States anymore, which is why police cannot find him. With the last independent sighting of Sky outside of his mother being a doctor's visit in April 2011, he remembered that Julia's estranged father came from Ukraine to visit her around that time. He believes that Julia's father could have taken Sky back to Ukraine with him. However, it is unknown how this could have happened without there being some sort of record. Solomon's lawyer stated she believes that Sky was never in the car to begin with, and police will not find evidence of him at the home due to Julia's OCD. She most likely had cleaned and bleached everything before concocting her story to police. She believes that Sky is most likely dead, and although it may not have been deliberate, due to Julia's mental health, Solomon's lawyer believes that it was most likely an accidental death through child neglect. After Sky's disappearance, Child Protective Services removed Mally from Julia's care and placed her in a foster home. Solomon was granted visitation twice a week after they removed the protective order the court had previously put on him. In 2015, at the 4th anniversary of Sky's disappearance, police appealed with Julia through the local newspaper to speak with them again. They released digitally aged photographs of what they believed the boy would look like at that time, along with the original photos. Around the same time, it was reported that Julia had remarried and had a third child with her new husband, Alan Morgan. The Department of Health and Services were concerned about Julia's mental health and capability to look after a child after receiving a complaint from the person who had helped deliver the baby. There had been many reports of complications in the new relationship that Julia found herself in. Alan Morgan is a convicted felon and previously had a child taken from his care in California. The same month that Julia and Alan married, police were called after Julia complained that he was beating her. Police issued a no-contact order, which he broke, and it led to his imprisonment. Whilst in jail for domestic violence, Julia continued to visit him and fell pregnant. They claimed that they were separated and did not live together, even though they both gave the same address to investigators when questioned. It is thought that Julia gave birth in hospital under an assumed name to try and deceive Child Protective Services. She said at one point that she did not know who the child's father was, even though Alan Morgan's name was on the birth certificate. In February 2019, Julia testified in court that Alan had once again broken the no-contact order she had in place against him. She acknowledged she was not allowed to be around her new son without an observer present. She continued to refuse to speak to the press after this court hearing.
You are not allowed to be alone with your son without a monitor, right?
Correct.
I don't want to waste everybody's time here with this long story and embellishments.
Yeah, I'm not the one wasting time, Mr. Beckett.
Bellevue Police have been asking for 7 years now for a response to what happened to Sky Metalwala. Why won't you talk to Bellevue Police?
She's not going to give a comment.
Bellevue Police say you are the only person who knows where Sky Metalwala is. Where is Sky Metalwala?
She's not going to comment.
2 years later, she was arrested by police on the shoplifting charges, but still refused to speak about the disappearance of Sky Metalwala. In 2021, on the 10th anniversary of Sky's disappearance, police released updated photographs which had been digitally altered to what a 12-year-old Sky is thought to look like. They pleaded with Julia to speak to them about her son's disappearance and released that they had spent over $2.5 million on the investigation and had followed over 2,500 tips, but were no closer to finding him. So, what do you think happened to Sky Metalwala? Is he alive, in a different country, with a different family? Or did he die before he was ever reported missing, and Julia's OCD helped clean up his unfortunate end? Don't forget to subscribe so you're notified on my next true crime case, and like the video if you really did like the video. Also, comment down below any thoughts on this case, along with any others you would like me to look into. It could be my next one.